Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to be learning about how aggregate demand and aggregate supply can affect the Phillips curve model and showing what that looks like in the Phillips curve. Let's get started. Okay, so this is an entire lecture that's just all based on drawing some graphs. And what we're going to do is show how changes in AD and AS, or output, will affect the Phillips curve model. And so what we're going to first start with is really just kind of graphing really quick little graphs, and this is going to be as nice as I can say it, of the following two graphs. And these are really just the base graphs for AD and AS. And then I'm going to actually do all of them, but I'm going to speed the video up a little bit so that we can just kind of keep rolling here. But I'm going to show you what these basic graphs need to look like. We're going to draw two side-by-side graphs, one with the AD-AS model, and we want to show the LRAS in here as well. So SRAS, AD, we don't need any of the dashed lines. We just want to do kind of a really simple little basic one. And I know that that's an oxymoron a little bit in terms of what we're doing here, but we'll kind of see what we got. So I want you to draw that pair of graphs, right, where you've got the basic model down, and we're going to draw it two more times, four, and then three more times, right? So do that pair of graphs three more times, and I'll see you in just a moment. Okay, so now you've got these graphs kind of finished here, hopefully. Very quickly, I want to kind of just remind you the shifters of aggregate demand, what they are. You have consumption spending, you have investment spending, you have government spending, and you have net exports, right? And so these are all the different reasons that aggregate demand might change. Now, anything that changes aggregate demand is actually going to cause a slide along the SRPC. You actually have to be on an SRPC. You don't have to be on your LRPC. And so let's imagine that maybe consumer confidence drops and we have less aggregate demand. So in the ADAS model, we're going to go from point A to point B and have lower prices and less output. In this model, we're going to go from point A at full employment to a recession, point B. And so you can kind of see that we're moving down, we're sliding down and opposite each other a little bit. That's a helpful way to do that. Inflation rates would fall and unemployment rates would rise. And so it's helpful to be able to kind of notice the inflation rate and the price level are going to change in the same way because they're functionally the same idea. Output and unemployment will move opposite each other. And we've talked about it ad nauseum about why that is. Now let's take a look at AD shifting to the right. Maybe the government decides to spend more money. Well, we're going to go from point A to point B. And when we do that, there's going to be higher price levels and more output temporarily. And then over here in this model, we're going to go up and slide up the curve because we're going to have less unemployment and we're going to have higher inflation rates. So aggregate demand is relatively straightforward to model in the Phillips curve. Let's take a look then at SRAS. Now, just as a reminder, there are four shifters of SRAS, and I totally stole this from Jacob Clifford, ACDC Econ, and he taught me that this is a really helpful way to kind of remember this and how to do this. I mean, he taught it as, remember, you've got your 45-degree angled arms, and that this is a way to help you remember the shifters of SRAS. They are inflationary expectations, resource costs, actions by the government affecting producers, and productivity. Inflationary expectations, resource costs, actions affecting producers, and productivity. And the reason why we actually put our arms up like that and have that 45-degree angle is because these two arms, I wish I had my chalkboard so I could show it to you, these two arms are actually your SRAS and your SRPC. And when they move like opposite each other like that. That's exactly how the SRAS and the SRPC move. And what's cool is the shifters of the SRPC is just whatever shifted the SRAS. So if you know, for example, that resource costs increased and that shifted SRAS to the left, then you know that also the short run Phillips curve will actually shift to the right, that they must move that opposite way of each other. So let's look at what that looks like on the graph. Let's say maybe inflationary expectations rise or resource costs rise. Something occurs to make the cost of production higher. Well, it's going to shift SRAS to the left. And in our graph here, we're going to go from point A to point B. And that's going to lead to higher prices and lower output. And remember, this is what we call stagflation, right? That's the worst of both worlds. You've got less output and higher prices. Well, what's going to occur in this model is we're going to go from point A here, and we're not going to go directly up, right? Be very, very careful that you don't do that because that would indicate that we're still at full employment and we're not at the natural rate anymore. We're in a recession, remember? And so we're actually going to move up and to the right to go to point B. Notice that they kind of move opposite each other. They move opposite directions like that. It's really important that we see that because unemployment is actually rising in this economy and inflation rates are rising. That's what that shift up and to the right indicates. Again, if we move directly up, it would tell us that the unemployment rate had stayed the same. Now, for the last one, SRAS shifts to the right. Maybe the government cut business regulations, right? They adopted some supply side policies, which we'll get to in 9.3. The government then increases SRAS from A to B. The effect of that here is to make output rise and price levels fall. Well, how would we show that in the SRPC? Well, if we know SRAS shifted to the right, then we actually know that SRPC shifted inward. So sometimes you're going to see questions that'll talk about SRPC and it'll say they shifted inward. That's what that means, inward. And it's key that we actually come down and to the left in this one, that we again are not going straight across. If we started like out here, we're going down and to the left. We're not going straight across or straight down with these. There's always going to be a diagonal movement in terms of what these changes are going to look like. So be very, very careful with that. Make sure you've got a diagonal movement. The diagonal movement is going to mirror what happened in the ADAS. I hope this helped you see how we're going to deal with Phillips curve and ADAS. I will see you next time.